Humility gives you character. Good character attracts wealth. Wealth is used for good, doing good deeds. Yes, it is true. The expansion of knowledge leads to happiness, but mere knowledge may not bring completeness. My dear friends, books are mere sources of knowledge, but the wise make us to learn how to use it productively. School of Sciences, SR University, has organized various enthralling talks by eminent speakers. Today, we have another bow of wisdom to enlighten the participants in the area of pronunciation. The emergence of globalization has led to the rise of the demand for English. In this global competitive scenario, an exigent need for the competence in English is in high demand to meet the global expectations today. Therefore, fluency and accuracy have become the vital qualities to be proficient in English. A proficient speaker's opportunities surely wide apart when compared to others in the present competitive world. To transmit as a proficient speaker, pronunciation matters to use language effectively. In view of many, there is a vivid mother tongue influence in the speech of English spoken by Indians. As the majority of the students have this issue of MTI in their speech, it emphasizes the need of consistent guidance and training to the students. In this regard, to give some required inputs to the students to overcome their mother tongue influence in their speech, this webinar plays a vital role. A thought is shared and immediately implemented with the esteemed guidance of our Dean, School of Sciences, Professor Bimal Kumar Sarkar. I wish you all to open the doors of your mind to be saturated with the drizzling ideas of today's august speaker. Dr. Rupa Sujana, the resource person of today's webinar from the Department of Linguistics and Phonetics, EFL University, Hyderabad. Ma'am, you're welcome. Let us make this session to be successful and productive with your active participation and cooperation. Thank you very much. Dear Upendra sir, please carry on.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for your welcome address. Now I request Ms. Vanaja and Ms. Ritika Oja to introduce the department and university briefly. Over to Ms. Vanaja and Ritika.
Yeah. Good morning, all. I hope I'm audible to all of you. Am I?
Yes. Yes.
Good morning, all. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our university. SREC was established in 2002 and is sponsored by the SR Educational Society. The university has been ranked number 134 in NIRF ranking and first rank in self-finance universities in India by All India ranking for institutions innovation by MHRD. SREC is an autonomous institution accredited by NAAC by A grade, and its programs are accredited by NBA. SR Engineering College has been given the status of a private university in 2019 by State of Telangana and then named SR University. Shri A. Varada Reddy Garu, the Chancellor of SR University, and is a man known for his discipline and vision. Sir has been serving the field of education since 1976. The Vice Chancellor of SR University, Professor G.R.C. Reddy, who was the Director of NIT Calicut, NIT Goa, Mentor Director of NIT Sikkim, IIT Kottayam, NIT Andhra Pradesh, and also Director in charge of NIT Warangal during the period of 2005 and 70. He is the Fellow of Optical Society of India, member of SPIE and OSA. He is also a Fellow of Telangana Academy of Sciences. Thank you. I now request Vanaja Rani Madam to introduce our department.
Thank you, Ritika ma'am. I now take this honor to introduce our department. The School of Sciences is headed by Dr. Bimal Kumar Sarkar. Sir earlier worked for VIT Chennai, and he also rendered his services to many institutions and accomplished many successful roles in his career. Under his guidance, the department has planned a series of webinars, and this webinar is also part of those series. Many students have encountered problems with their mother tongue influence while communicating with the students is what we actually noticed. And what we noticed is the pronunciation, which all matters a lot. So without any delay, the same is expressed to our dean, and he readily encouraged us to organize this webinar on pronunciation matters, a talk on English phonetics and mother tongue influence in the speech of English spoken by Indians. And to speak about the Department of English, we have 8 members in the department who are well qualified and experienced. And the department has conducted many activities to enhance the written and spoken skills in students. The aim of our department is to bring out hidden talent in the students regarding the observation of imaginative, expressive, thinking, articulating, writing, and many other associated skills in these activities. This also aids us awaken to the students' creative energies. The students found the activities invigorating and helped them in their creative expressions. Thank you all. Thank you, James.
Thank you so much, both of you, for introducing the university and department. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Rupesh to introduce the today's speaker of the webinar to the audience. Rupesh, over to you.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Department of English, SR University, I deem it a privilege to introduce today's resource person, Dr. Rupa Susanna, Professor and Head, Department of Linguistics and Phonetics, Dean, School of Distance Education, the English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad. Professor Susanna's expertise is in articulatory, acoustic, and clinical phonetics, and she has close to 3 decades of experience.
You're not audible. Your voice is breaking. Rupesh, you're not audible.
At the university level. Apart from presenting national and international seminars, workshops, talks of teaching material in phonetics.
Rupesh, we can't hear you.
I think his microphone is muted.
Rupesh, can you please check your microphone once? I think you're. Yeah, you're muted.
Sorry for the inconvenience, actually. Yeah. So I deem it a privilege to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Rupa Susanna, Professor and Head Department of Linguistics and Phonetics, Dean School of Distance Education, the English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad. Professor Susanna's expertise is in articulatory, acoustic, and clinical phonetics and has close to 3 decades of experience in teaching phonetics at the university level. Apart from presenting several research papers and being a resource person at several national and international seminars, workshops, and conferences, Professor Susan has written and edited several blocks of teaching and training material in phonetics for the EFL University and has published a textbook in phonetics titled A Practical Course in English Pronunciation, published by the Tata McGraw-Hill Education Private Limited. Ma'am was the chief coordinator of the International Training Program, ITP as we call it, for the university from 2017 to March 2022, and is also currently the chairperson of SPARSH at EFL University. Professor Susanna has liaised between the university and the Ministry of External Affairs and more than 90 Indian embassies. She has trained government officials from about 105 countries for the last 23 years at EFLU. And indeed, it's an honor to have you with us, dear ma'am, and we welcome you wholeheartedly. And over to you.
Thank you so much for the beautiful introduction about ma'am. I'm glad to welcome ma'am to deliver her talk. Ma'am, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rupinder.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll
Am
stop
I
here.
audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You are.
Okay. So at the very outset, I would like to thank the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor G.R.C. Reddy, and the Dean of the School of Sciences, Professor B.K. Sarkar, for having given me this opportunity to speak on this particular topic. And a special thanks to Rupesh. I suppose I agreed to do this talk only because Rupesh had asked me. He has always been dear to my heart, a student not really a direct student, but then a student of our university, EFLU. I haven't really taught Rupesh, but then he has always been very close to my heart. So I couldn't say no when he asked me to do this webinar for your university. Thank you very much for having me over to do this for you. Can I now share my screen?
Yes, ma'am, you can.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, wonderful. All right, so before we begin talking about pronunciation, I thought I would gradually lead you into thinking about pronunciation, and therefore we will start talking about certain general topics as to what language actually is. What is language? All of us use language, one language or the other, right? Not just the English language, but one language or the other. All human beings on the surface of the earth do make use of a language. And then how can we define language? Language is an arbitrary set of signals, such as sounds and symbols that we make use of in order to communicate with each other, right? And this thing called language is something that is gifted only to the human beings. It is unique to the human beings. It's only the humans that are endowed with this gift of speech. There are many other animals that communicate with each other, but none can communicate the way human beings communicate. You must have really heard of other animals like, dogs, cats, monkeys, dolphins, bees, okay, the bee dance. They communicate with each other. But then the kind of characteristic features that language has, that the language that human beings use to communicate with each other is not present amongst the communication systems of the other animals. We do know that dogs welcome their master. We understand, they communicate this. But no matter how wonderfully a dog may wag his tail, he cannot eloquently, communicate to the master how happy he is, or how he enjoyed his meal the previous night, or what he plans to do, the next day. Such features are present only in the human language, where we are able to be creative about language. We can think and speak about things that haven't been spoken before. We can multitask, we can do physical things while we are talking. And also, both the male and the females are equally capable of using the language to the same extent, which is is not present in the animal system of communication. Now, when you talk about language, there is also something that we need to understand: the distinction between speech and language. What is speech and what is language? Speech, when you talk about speech, it is something to do with articulation of these speech sounds, right? It is the motor impulses that are sent to your articulatory system, and your articulatory system begins to work to produce sounds which we call speech. Whereas language is something to do with meaningful units of speech that actually convey meaning. Language is to do with meaning, where it is the two areas in the human brain that contribute to understanding language and also producing language. The Broca's area is that area in the brain that helps to articulate these speech sounds. And another area in the brain actually helps you with cognition, with understanding language, and then sending these impulses to the Broca's area in order to produce what you wish to say. Now, speech is a complicated process, right? Many of us think that talking happens only with the tongue, so much so that when there are elders and teachers in the class who perhaps would admonish a younger person and would say, hold your tongue, don't talk too much, hold your tongue. But then speech and language is something that is not limited just to the tongue. It's a whole lot. The whole process is a cognitive process where there is a lot of thinking that happens, right? So after this cognition, after the genesis of an idea takes place, these motor impulses sent from the Broca's area to the articulatory system, we produce these sounds. These sounds are they travel through a medium which is known as the acoustic stage. Once they reach the human ear, that is where the auditory stage, where these sound waves, the physical sound waves, are converted into neural impulses, and they are taken back through the auditory nerve to the brain for us to interpret what is being said, right? Now, let us also know the difference between language learning and acquisition. Now, both are really distinct from each other. Learning happens in a very formal setting with a teacher, with a classroom, with a blackboard, where there is a person sitting there trying to teach you the rules of the grammar, the phonology, the morphology, the syntax, etc. It happens in a very organized and in a very structured pattern, whereas acquisition happens in a very informal way. You don't have a classroom, a teacher, or a blackboard. You learn the language implicitly, right? Just like we learn our mother tongue. Right now, let us look at language now with special reference to pronunciation. Well, if I go back to the first slide to take a look at the title that I've given to my talk, which says pronunciation matters. Well, indeed it matters. I hope you all agree with me that pronunciation does matter. Well, especially we being in in India, and the Indian population, as we all know, is a baffling mosaic of multilingualism. There are so many different languages that are used as mother tongue in India. Have you any idea how many mother tongues are spoken in India? May I request Dr. Upender to please post the poll question, where I would like to see, if our participants have any idea about the number of mother tongues that are used in India.
Ma'am, there is some technical issue, so we'll not.
Okay, no problem at all. I thought there would be a poll question, and then we could kind of find out how many have an idea about this.
They can drop in the chat box, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, they could do that. But then I will go ahead, okay, talking about this. There are about 1,652 mother tongues that are used in India. That is a huge number. And if you think about, if you include languages, if you include dialects apart from languages, the number is much more than that. It's about 19,500 languages and dialects that are used as mother tongue in India. Now, what is mother tongue? I mean, when we talk about languages, all of us have a mother tongue. And why is it called a mother tongue and not father tongue? Mother tongue is the language that you are first exposed to. You think in that language, you dream in that language. It is the language that you learn as a part of the process of your growing up. There is no, like I just mentioned, there is no classroom, there is no teacher that teaches you. Your mother doesn't have a blackboard at home, and as a little child hasn't put you in front of the blackboard and taught you the first language that you use at home, the mother tongue, right? We all make use of the mother tongue implicitly. We learn it as a natural process. And you would be surprised to know that a human baby begins to learn language even before it's born, right? The second trimester and the third trimester, even at the fetal stage, the human baby begins to learn language. And the first skill that a human baby grapples with is the listening skill. The fetus is listening to the sound patterns of the language that is spoken around it, right? And therefore, the child, the baby, the fetus is familiar. As soon as the fetus is born, a born baby is familiar with the sound patterns of its mother tongue. Learning has already begun. The ears are attuned to the sound patterns of the language, and the baby, the more the input, as soon as the baby is born, all of us around the baby talk to the baby. We don't expect the baby to talk back to us, to give us answers, right? But then all of us, the grandparents, the parents, uncles, aunts around the child, are always talking to the baby. Now, all this is the input. Therefore, I would say that when we input in terms of listening, right? So once the human baby grapples with these listening skills, it becomes, proficient enough to begin to articulate, which happens sometime, when the baby is about 6 or 8 months old. It begins with babbling, and then produces the sounds that it has been listening to all the time. Now, therefore, when we wish to learn the English language, I would advise all of you to listen extensively to the standard pattern of the English language, so that it becomes easier for us to articulate the same patterns when we speak. Now, yes, we have talked about mother tongue and the second language, and the English language in India has the position of a second language, and we make use of the English language to a large extent apart from the mother tongue. Now, English coexists along with a number of other languages in India. The 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution lists about 22 official languages in India. Different states have different first languages, and in India, because of this multilingual scenario, we have several Englishes in India, so many different varieties of the English language in India, as many as the first languages, in different parts of India. And therefore, we also talk about, Punjabi English, Telugu English, Tamil English, and Hindi, Bengali English, Orion English, every different variety of English that is spoken in that particular state. Why does this happen? It's because the language English, of course, is learned second only to our mother tongue. And when we begin to learn the English language, we tend to replace or actually place the rules of our first language or the mother tongue onto the English language that we are learning. The phonology of our mother tongue influences the English language when we speak. The grammatical structures influence the English language when we begin to learn the English language. I think from the time of Macaulay, from Macaulay's time to the present time, all of us Indians have reached a stage where we very honestly accept the fact that there is no escape from the English language, right? We all know that the English language is the language of privileges. It is the language of opportunities. It is a language that opens up a window to the modern world. It is a language of upward mobility in society. And universities and companies across the world today are looking for candidates who are articulate in their speech, who speak impeccable English, whose pronunciation is impeccable. When one speaks the English language, we expect that one should not democratize the English language. Think that, whatever it may be, as long as, I'm able to convey the meaning, it is enough. No, it is not enough. We are not supposed to democratize the English language. We are supposed to speak the English language the way it is supposed to be spoken, right? Therefore, I suppose a very a structured and organized study of the phonetics of English helps us to make our speech intelligible, right? Intelligibility is something that we are looking for. In training our students in phonetics, we don't expect them to speak the Queen's language, right? I have been teaching phonetics for the last 20 odd years, 25 years, but then I don't speak the Queen's pattern, the RP, the received pronunciation of English. But when I speak the English language, none of my listeners ask me to repeat what I say. That is all that we must aim at. We should be able to wean ourselves off the mother tongue influences in our English language and speak a kind of, neutral pattern of English pronunciation, which is intelligible to the native ear, not only to all the people in India, but also to the native speakers of the language, because they are very particular. If you replace one sound for another, it perhaps could mean something else for a native ear. So we will dwell more upon, such substitutions and deletions of sounds and the kind of unintelligibility they bring about in one's speech as we go through the session. But to begin with, let me say that, why do you think people have problems with pronunciation? Indian students, we especially are exposed to the English language straight out when we are 3 years old. Yet when we pass out of school and intermediate, join a professional course, we have engineers, today, graduates, engineering graduates, who find it so difficult to pronounce effectively, who find it difficult to communicate effectively in the English language. And I think that the reason for this is that we do not give enough importance to the spoken skill at the school level. All schools should bring about, this speaking skills as an important component of their training as well as testing, because if you do not test the student tends to take things easy. Basically, this difficulty in English pronunciation is because of one aspect of the English language, which is that it has an unphonetic script. The script of the English language is unphonetic in the sense there is no one-to-one correspondence between sound and symbol, right? What we write is different from what we speak, which does not take place in most of the regional languages. Take, for example, Hindi or Telugu, right? You say amma, you write a for a and amma for ma, right? It is amma. There is one-to-one correspondence between sound and symbol, which is not present in the English language. There, you write one thing, but you say something else. Now, the main reason for problems in pronunciation is because the English language doesn't have a one-to-one correspondence between sound and symbol. Now, all of you, I'm sure, agree with me if I said the English language had 26 letters in its alphabet, right? There are 26 letters in the English alphabet, but then sounds. Have you any idea how many sounds the English language has? Can I look at the chat here to see what you are guessing? Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Quite a few of you. Oh, great. I'm so glad, right? There are 44 sounds in the English language, right? 26 letters and 44 sounds. Well, look at this difference. So obviously, one letter has to correspond to more than one sound, right? And this is where we need to realize that it is not easy for us to just learn all of the English pronunciation very easily. It needs a very organized and a structured way of learning the sounds, the symbols, every symbol, each of the 44 symbols that correspond to these 44 sounds, so that we are able to become dictionary proficient. I would like all of you to be able to become independent learners, independent users of the English language pronunciation dictionary by Daniel Jones. Now, this dictionary is just like any other Oxford dictionary. When you turn in and look for the pronunciation of a word, you have the pronunciation in this script, in the phonetic script. And I would like all of you participating in today's webinar to become able to identify all the 44 symbols of the 44 sounds of the English language, so that you become self-learners of pronunciation, right? All right, let me now quickly go through the slides. All right, so as I was talking, a single letter corresponds to more number of sounds. We have the letter A that corresponds to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so many different sounds. A says A as an act. It says A as an account, A as in gate, E as in care, A as in car, O as in wash, O as in water. And surprisingly, A also corresponds to the sound E as in village. The A in this letter corresponds to the sound E. Normally, Indian speakers would say village, A, taking, the spelling into consideration, but the pronunciation is village. There are other words like baggage. You don't say baggage, luggage. It's luggage, baggage, college, marriage, carriage. Okay, this is the pronunciation, the sound that the letter A corresponds to. The letter O corresponds to, again, several different sounds. It says O in cot, O in story, border. It says U in book. The double O in book and foot corresponds to the short U sound, U. Also the long oo, as in food, cool, tool. Ah as in come, O as in no, go. As in correct, contain, etc. Letter E, you can see, corresponds to A, E, and ear as in serious. Indians never tend to use the diphthongs. We always prefer to use the pure vowel and then pronounce this word as serious instead of serious. Notice there are two diphthongs, ear, seer, rear. There are two diphthongs used in this word serious, zero, period. That's the right pronunciation. So also we have the letter C here that corresponds to K and Sir. K as in curtain and Sir as in certain. D says D as in danger, J as in educate, and T as in picked. You don't say picked, the D sound. The final sound in these words where the ED inflection is used, it is pronounced as T, picked, walked, laughed. And the letter G corresponds to G as in garden, J as in Genesis, and J as in garage. So I think I'll just skip the sounds. We also have letter combinations like the CH letter combination that says K in character. It says ch in church, says sh in chef. OUGH says O in though, ah in rough, oh in cough, ooh in through, and aw in OUGH says aw in I can't get to see the word, but I can't even think of an example now. Or cough, okay? COUGH, it says aw. Oh, in cough, and through thorough. Okay, I'll skip that for now. Let's look at the phonetic symbols of the English consonant sounds. Now, as you see on the slide, can I get to know that if the symbols are visible to all of you, or if they have become gibberish?
They are visible, ma'am.
Visible, okay.
Yes.
So we have p, b, t, d, k, g, ch, and j, f, v, th, the, s, z, sh, j, and h. Now, I wouldn't want to use too much of technical details in telling you that what these bilabial sounds are, what are fricatives and plosives and affricates, etc. But let me just pronounce or articulate these sounds for you, though it is good for you to know how these sounds are produced so that it helps you to articulate these sounds effectively. P, b are known as bilabial sounds because both the lips come together. P, b. You need to bring both the lips together and then release the sound, the air stream that is moving out of your system. Now, yes, at this point, let me also tell you that these 44 sounds are classified into vowels and consonants based on the way the lung air is moves out of your system from the lungs to the exterior. When you produce sounds where the lung air moves out without any obstruction, ah, oh, e, ooh, look at the sound, look at the air stream moving out of your system without any obstruction. Such sounds are known as vowels. And when there is a kind of an obstruction, like I just produced p, b, t, d, where the tip of the tongue goes up and touches the alveolar ridge, and then you release t, d. You say k, g. The back of the tongue rises up to touch the roof of the oral cavity. K, g. So some part or the other obstructs the airstream and then releases, and that way you produce consonant sounds. Now, in India, okay, there are some more consonant sounds here. L, r, where L is the lateral sound where you take the tip of your tongue and touch the alveolar ridge and the lung air moves out laterally, right? R, M, N are nasal sounds where all the lung air moves out through the nasal passage. You can try it out yourself. Say, all the lung air moves out through the nasal passage. There is no air that moves out through the oral cavity. Y and W are known as semi-vowels. That's because they are produced like the vowel sounds, but they function as consonant sounds. They always form the marginal elements of a syllable. We'll talk about that later. So what is important for us Indians is to make sure we make use of these sounds effectively and make a proper distinction between these sounds, right? Sir and z. See the distinction between niece and knees. The sir, z. Excuse me. The sir, z distinction, as in niece versus knees. Sir and sure, suit and shoot, sure and je, pressure and pleasure. In pleasure, it's the je sound, whereas in pressure, it is the sh sound. Ch and je, as in h and edge, f and v, as in few and view. Another important aspect of pronunciation is we must take care we do not realize the final r sound or when the r sound is followed by a consonant sound. Now, Indians generally pronounce the r sound in all positions of the word. For example, let's look at the first word, market. Market is the standard pronunciation, but Indians tend to pronounce it as market. The r is realized. Also, teacher, doctor, the final r is not realized. Teacher, it ends with a sure sound. Doctor, master, mother, father, it ends in the sure sound. You do not realize the final r. Of course, the American pattern realizes the r sound with a rolling of the tongue. They pronounce such words as doctor, where the tongue rolls back and you produce the r sound. That's the American pattern. Doctor, teacher, master. But then we are approximating our speech to the British pattern. In our system of education, we train our students to approximate our speech to the RP, although we do not expect them to speak RP. We only expect our students to approximate their speech to the standard norm where the listeners do not get to identify your regional area that you come from. All right, Indians most often do not make a distinction between the labiodental v and the labiovelar w, the rounding of the lips for w, which is a semi-vowel, and the fricative sound v. Well, if you are speaking to a native speaker and use a word like veil, or don't use it with the labiodental articulation. Veil, you're supposed to articulate it as veil to distinguish it from the big blue whale with a rounding of the lips, whale. And if you do not do that and speak to a native speaker, with a neutral disposition of the articulation, he wouldn't understand what whale you're talking about. Is it the big blue whale or the veil that you wear in front of your face? So this is something that we need to take care. And the clue that I can give you is you use a fricative, labiodental fricative when the spelling has a V sound, V, and a W when there is a W. Let's look at the phonetic symbols of the vowel sounds. These are the pure vowels, or also known as monophthongs, where in the production of these sounds, the tongue takes just one position. So the first sound here is E, 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 A, O, A, U, U, Ah, as in cut, shut, but. As in apply, another, and as in cut, fern, churn, learn, etc. These are the diphthongs where I think all of us must train, to teach our tongue, some kind of oral gymnastics. The tongue has to glide from one position to another position in order to produce these diphthongs: a, I, oi, ear, ua, as in sure, air as in share, o as in no, and ow as in now. We also need to make a clear distinction between the vowel sounds that we use: the short vowel E and the long vowel E. See, when you use the long vowel, it is sleep. And when you use the short vowel, it is slip. Peel, pill. Now, I believe, people in West Bengal and Oriya, they tend to mix up these two sounds, the short vowel and the long vowel. They don't make a clear distinction between the two sounds. And there was this Indian Bengali who kind of gave a bottle to his a friend who was a native speaker and said, "Feel this bottle, please." And the native speaker kept feeling the bottle for a long time. Whereas, the Bengali speaker wanted him to fill the bottle. See the difference in the meanings that are conveyed if you do not make use of the right vowel length, right? You can't say to answer a question like, have you had your breakfast? You say, yes, I'm full. You can't. A native speaker would wonder why you are calling yourself a fool, whereas you would actually want to say that you're full, right? So there, make a clear distinction between a long vowel and a short vowel, which is very important in pronunciation. Also make a difference between, similar sounding, vowel sounds like a and a. You say a as in Mary and a as in Mary. Many Indian speakers, North Indian speakers especially, would say would switch these two vowel sounds and say, instead of saying Merry Christmas, perhaps I have heard many people saying Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. So it's not Merry, but it's Merry. Both cannot be, although it would have been wonderful, to have them both mixed up, because it's nice to be merry when you marry, but then both are, two separate vowel sounds. Let's look at some more examples. A and R. A as in pat and R as in part. A as in musk and R as in mask. A as in lame and I as in lime. See, many Indian speakers do not make a distinction between A and I, especially the Dravidian languages. The Telugu speakers tend to mix up these two diphthongs, words like railway, which has to use the A, okay? Railway, they tend to pronounce the word as railway, okay? And where they have to use the vowel, the diphthong I, and say child, they would rather pronounce it as child, which is not correct. So such pronunciations dampen your, your communication completely, especially when it comes to, take for example, with the same mix-up of these diphthongs. If you mix them up, you can't make a distinction between raid and ride in English. You might want to say ride, but you would end up saying raid, or you might want to say raid and you would end up saying ride. So Telugu speakers who tend to pronounce, neighbor as neighbor, railway as railway, need to take care of, such diphthongs, and they need to be used effectively in the right context. Bud and bird, fun and fern, as in fern, as in pot, and as in part. All right. Another important aspect, I won't take much time in discussing this because it needs a lot of theory, but then I'll be very crisp in letting you know the theory behind the pronunciation of inflectional suffixes. Inflectional suffixes are those suffixes like the ing form, or the when we pluralize, when we add es, the ded, the past tense morpheme, or the plural morpheme by adding ses. The pronunciation of the word is not always with a sir sound. It could be sir, it could be zer, it could be is as well, right? Now, you could perhaps, I will lead you to books in phonetics that give you more information on voiced and voiceless sounds. Voiceless sounds are those sounds that are produced when there is no vibration of the vocal folds, whereas voiced sounds are produced with the vibration of the vocal fold. Now, when you have words that end in, when you add the s or es as the plural marker to words that end in a voiceless sound, except the three voiceless consonants here, which are ch, sir, and sh. The plural realization would be with the sir sound. You say drops. Look at the sir sound. Months, coughs, admits. When you add the s or es to a word that ends in a voiced sound, except the voiced counterparts of these voiceless sounds, j, z, and j, the plural realization is with a z sound. Dogs, you don't say dogs, sir, there's no sir sound there. Dogs, defends, joins, n is a voiced sound. So when you add sir, s to a word that ends in a voiced sound, except these three sounds, the plural realization is with a z sound. So the third rule here is where we are left with these 6 sounds, which were exceptions to the first 2 rules. When words end in these 6 sounds, the plural realization is with an is sound. We say judges, noises, offices. This is something that is lacking in Indian speech, that doesn't bring the same crispness in our speech in the English pronunciation. So it is important for us to learn these rules and pronounce effectively. The same goes with the pronunciation of the DED past tense markers. When we add the D or ED to words, this is the ED that is added to a word that ends in, that ends in pa, right? Scrape. Pa is a voiceless sound. Therefore, the realization of the past tense marker would be with a t sound. Scraped. You don't say scraped, laughed. South Indians even break the, they bring, they break the root word and the ed morpheme and tend to pronounce the word as laughed, watched, which is so sore to hear, right? So we need to use the t realization to such ed markers that are placed at the to words that end in voiceless sounds. When the word ends in a voiced sound like l, b here, were here, the past tense realization is with a d sound. Behaved, robbed, described, fulfilled, and we are left with words that end in t and d. Now, those words that end in t and d, when you add the past tense morpheme, the past tense realization is said with an id sound. You say scolded, corrected, guarded, heated, minded. Now, what is word accent? It is important for us to know English has an accent, word accent, where words are accented. Different words are accented on different syllables. You know, there are many languages in the world where all the languages across that particular, all the words in that particular language are accented on a particular syllable. For example, in the French language, it is the last. In Polish, it is the penultimate syllable. Some other language has the first syllable alone that is accented, whereas in English, the stress is free as well as fixed, which means word accent is on different syllables in different words. Let's take, for example, the word doctor. The word doctor is stressed on the first syllable, doctor, and it is stressed on that particular syllable in all contexts, right? That's why it's called fixed. We have other words where the word accent is on the second syllable. Take, for example, a word like about, among, where the accent is on the second syllable. Or look at the word examination. Examination, the accent is on the fourth syllable. So this way, word accent is free in the sense that different words have word accent on different syllables, but fixed because once placed in a particular word, it is always used on that particular syllable. For example, you always say doctor and not doctor in one context and doctor in another context, right? Now, having said that word accent is fixed on a particular syllable, once you place it on that particular syllable and it is used on that particular syllable always, there are exceptions to every rules, right? Every rule that we talk about. So here there is something called the functional accent. Okay, here are some words that I have given where if you do not place accent effectively, there is a chance of your speech being unintelligible. Prefer, you have to accent the second syllable and not the first. If you accent the first syllable, a native ear would hear it as briefer, because once you do not place the accent on the first syllable, you also do not aspirate the sound, right? So the native ear would hear it as briefer. You say written, written has to be accented on the first syllable, but some Indians tend to accent it on the second syllable and say return. I've written the letter. If you say you've written the letter, your listener would understand it as return. Why is he saying, I asked him to write the letter and this person is telling me that he has returned it? Whereas the person speaking is only trying to tell him that he has written the letter. So placing the accent is very important, placing the accent on the right syllable. Character is accented on the first syllable. Character, if you accent it here, your listener would hear it as director. So this way, if you do not say develop and say develop, your listener would hear it as envelope. Word accent, therefore, is very important for intelligibility. Now, yes, I spoke about this just a minute back. I did say that once you place the word accent on a particular syllable, it is always placed there, but then there are a few exceptions. There are about 40 words in the English language where accent is shifted from one syllable to another, depending on whether you wish to use it as a noun or as a verb. And this is what is known as functional accent. Now, you accent the word on the first syllable, you use it as a noun. Accent it on the second syllable, it is used as a verb. This is a beautiful object. John may object to the rearrangement. Object is to use it as a verb and object is a noun. Phonetics is an interesting subject. Subject being used as a noun. Don't subject him to this torture. Subjecting somebody to something, you're using the word subject as a verb. Now, there's also something called derivational accent, which is very important, that we make use of this derivational accent in our speech. Most Indians make use of all the derivations with accent on the same syllable as it is used in the root word. We tend to pronounce these words as academy, academic, and academician. The accent is always on ca, which is not correct. Make use of this derivational accent where accent shifts from one syllable to another syllable as you derive a word from, a longer word from its root word. Look at this: academy, academic, academician. That's the right pronunciation of these words. Hypocrite, hypocrisy, hypocritical. Mobile, mobility, mobilization. National, nationality, nationalization. Now, let's move ahead to talk about stress and rhythm in connected speech. Well, when you talk about connected speech, you are speaking sentences which are where words are strung together. Now, there are lexical words and grammatical words that are strung together to form grammatically right sentences, right? Now, the distinction between lexical words and grammatical words, when you close your eyes and think of a lexical word, you can imagine, you get a mental image of that particular word. And such words are known as lexical words. Whereas when you close your eyes and say a, and, the, is, was, you don't get any mental pictures, right? So such words are grammatical words. And when you make sentences in a neutral situation, make sure you are accenting the lexical words and not accenting the grammatical words. The boy has gone to school. Jack and Jill are friends. You don't say the boy has gone to school, right? The, has, and to. These are grammatical words that should go into oblivion. You only accentuate the content words or the lexical words. The money was in the locker, you use the weak forms of these grammatical words and glide over to the next stressed word. So make sure you make use of this kind of accentuation when you use sentences in English, because this is what that gives that particular stress timed rhythm to the English language. Okay, when we make use of connected speech, we also must make use of weak forms and the contracted forms in our speech. Well, you don't say I had bread and butter for breakfast, right? You use the weak form, which is an. Sometimes it's just bread and butter from. You don't say from. Okay, he's coming from home, from. That's the weak form. Give me a pen. You don't say a pen. Give me a pen. Give me a pen. Which is the schwa. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. You don't say and. That's the strong form. We use weak forms of these grammatical words. We also make use of contracted forms in order to bring about that particular stress time rhythm in our speech. You do not say sentences with he has not come home today, he hasn't come home today, they are not going there, they aren't going there. This is how you contract these structure words in order to collapse the time gap between the unstressed syllables so that you bring in that stress time rhythm in your speech. I have a few sentences here that I would like to read out to you. The man has boarded the flight. Look at these stresses. The man has boarded the flight. This is the stress timed rhythm that's present in the English language. The maid was in the kitchen. Wasn't the. These are the unstressed, weakened, contracted forms of the structure words. Well, you stress on the structure words only in certain situations where you have to convey, some kind of a stress on that particular expression of yours, right? When you want to reiterate something or stress on that particular situation. For example, if the person you're talking to doesn't believe that this particular person was angry, then you say, no, he was angry. Okay, I did ask you. You are paying her back. So these are sentences where you stress on the structure words in order to convey some kind of a reiteration, or you stress on these words to convey the meaning, the nuance of meaning that you wish to convey. Well, intonation is another area, the last area that I'm going to touch on this morning. What is intonation? Intonation is the variations of the pitch of your voice. We don't speak at one level tone, right? And also we do not speak continuously. Why do you think we do not speak continuously? We can't keep on talking and 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 talking. I have to stop, breathe in more air, and then begin to speak again, because it is that lung air that I am breathing out that is being modified into speech, right? So we need to take care of several aspects when we are speaking sentences, right? In connected speech, we need to pause at the right junction. Now, yes, we need to pause in order to breathe in more air and bring out more speech, but that pausing should be done at a meaningful juncture. For example, I cannot say, hello, Mr. John, how are you? It sounds so odd, doesn't it? You have to pause at a meaningful juncture. Hello, Mr. John, how are you? Okay, she dressed and fed the baby. Now look at sentences 2 and 3. The way you pause also brings about change in the meaning conveyed, right? She dressed and fed the baby. She did both the things to the baby. But if you pause and say she dressed and fed the baby, she did the dressing to herself. She dressed herself and then she fed the baby. My sister, who's a doctor, has a brilliant son. My sister, who's a doctor, has a brilliant son. Now, can you guess the meaning difference between sentences 4 and 5? Sentence 4, my sister who's a doctor has a brilliant son, means you have just one sister who's a doctor. But then my sister who's a doctor, you have several sisters. One of them is a doctor. There's a sister who's a lawyer. There's one more who's an engineer. But you are talking about your sister who's a doctor, has a brilliant son, right? So there are nuances of meaning that you can convey by just the way in which you pause in your sentences. Also, the way in which you focus on the particular words. Look at these sentences. I didn't say he stole the gold. The focus is on gold. I didn't say he stole the gold. I said he stole the money. I could also focus on the word stole and say, I didn't say he stole the gold. He asked me to give it to him. So I gave it to him. He didn't steal it. I didn't say he stole the gold, which means somebody else stole the gold. I didn't say he stole the gold. I only felt it. But then I didn't explicitly say he stole the gold. I didn't say he stole the gold. The last sentence here, I didn't say he stole the gold. Somebody else said that he stole the gold. Look at the different kinds of, nuances nuances of meaning that you can convey by just shifting the focus from one word to another word. Now, once we chunk our sentences into smaller, meaningful groups of words and place the focus on the right word, it is also important for us to make use of the right tone, right? Look at the different tones. Like I just mentioned, we don't speak on one level tone, right? Like there was some program on TV long back where this computer child speaks on one level tone. They were rude in the party, close the door, the party was good. That is the kind of tone that this computer child would speak in. But we humans don't speak like that. There are rises, there are falls, there are fall rises and rise falls in our speech, and each tone conveys some kind of a meaning. Well, I must mention here that the native speaker gives us some kind of, when it is one sound for another, a native speaker would still understand and say, okay, this is a non-native speaker, so he has problem with his sounds. But a native speaker would never understand an incorrectly used tone, because that incorrect tone also means something, right? So if you say something like thank you with a rising tone and not thank you with a falling tone, which doesn't, a falling tone conveys genuine gratitude, right? And thank you is the kind of a thank you that a ticket conductor would say once he gives you the ticket and takes the money. A kind of something that is said as a general thing, okay, without much gratitude attached to it. So if you said thank you with a rising tone to a native speaker who perhaps was with you in the hospital all night through, then he would feel offended. He would perhaps, expect a genuine, a tone that conveys a genuine gratitude when you say thank you. So close the door is a command. Close the door is a request. The party was good with a falling tone is a genuine idea that you're conveying, whereas the party was good, that's a question. You just manipulate the tone of your voice. Generally speaking, how do you convert a sentence into a question? You have the subject auxiliary inversion, right? You say for a sentence like the party was good. If you want to ask a question, was the party good? This is the subject auxiliary inversion that takes place. But you can still ask a question by manipulating the tone of your voice, by using the rising tone. You say the party was good. You're asking a question, okay? She's beautiful is a statement. She's beautiful is a question. Oh, really? Is she beautiful? You can say the same thing with a falling rising tone, which conveys a different kind of an attitude. She's beautiful, a falling rising tone. She's beautiful, but ... Okay, not very intelligent, or not smart, not helpful, not honest, not, you're conveying a great deal of negative idea by making use of the falling rising tone. So this way we need to be very careful when we are, when we make use of these tones in our speech. Now I'm just gliding through these sentences. There are too many that I have here. Right. So let us look at some common errors in the pronunciation of the English spoken by Indians, right? I think I have about 15 to 20 minutes more, so I just skip those slides. What is important for us to know is to use the tones, basically the pauses in our sentences, the focus that we lay on the words and the tones that we make use of should faithfully reflect our intentions, because English intonation is English. You cannot superimpose the intonation of your own mother tongue onto the English language, because that brings about a change in the meaning. You wouldn't be able to really convey your ideas faithfully. Although intentionally you don't mean anything wrong, but then your listener will understand you wrong if you do not use the tones effectively, right? So let's now quickly look at some slides where I have prepared words that are often mispronounced in the English language, mispronunciations made by Indian speakers. And the reasons, the first reason here that I have noted is because we tend to lean on orthography. Orthography is spelling. As I mentioned right at the beginning, there is absolutely no one-to-one correspondence between sound and spelling, what we speak and what we write, right? So, but most Indians go by the spelling written here, and they tend to pronounce this word as advertisement, which is not the right pronunciation. It is advertisement. It's not atmosphere. If you say atmosphere to a native speaker, he would wonder, he would perhaps think of something to do with fear, right? So it's atmosphere. It's not almond. The law is silent. It is not a there. It is a. Almond is the right pronunciation. Lamb, the b is not realized. It's lamb. Comb, womb, tomb. The b is not realized. Now, this word listen most often is pronounced by Indians as listen with a z sound, which is incorrect. It's listen, where they have to use the z sound in the word hesitate, just because there is in the spelling, there is a s here. They tend, especially South Indians, they pronounce this word as hesitate, and music. It's not music, it's music. It's not society. Just because there is an o here, you don't, and with the rounding of the lips say society. No, it's society. Now this word dais, people often call these important people onto the dais, which is totally incorrect. It's days, debris, colonel. I've heard many people say colonel, which the l is not present here at all. You pronounce it as colonel. He's a colonel in the army. Have you had breakfast? It's not breakfast. It's breakfast. It's buffet. It's tortoise, not tortoise. Most Indians go by the spelling and pronounce this word as tortoise. It's tortoise. Among, not among. It's not baggage, but baggage. Now, all this happens because we tend to go by spelling. Indians also pronounce the r sound in the spellings, and therefore pronounce words like alarm as alarm. The r is articulated. Church, r in church. It's church. Ch, and ch again. Let me transcribe that for you. Ch, followed by ch. Church, circle, careless, list. It's not less, but list here, right? And it's care, less. Not careless, careless. The r is realized in Indian speech. Poor, the r is realized. Verse still in Telugu speech, this is pronounced as poor. Poor child, okay? Doctor, the r here, and the garden, and the water, the r in water. Please make a note that the r sound is not to be realized when it appears at the final position and when it is followed by a consonant sound. Now, absence of aspiration is another important feature of our English spoken by Indians. We do not aspirate per, ter, and ka are the three plosives that are supposed to be aspirated when they occur at the beginning of an accented syllable. You say pa, ta, ka. And if you do not aspirate, aspiration is nothing but speaking the sound with greater breath force. Now, if you do not aspirate the sound, the native ear especially interprets that sound as the voiced counterpart of these voiceless sounds. if you do not aspirate and say post, post, the native here, and say post, the native here ear would hear it as boast. B-O, B-O, sir. This is how the native ear would hear it as. You don't say pin, give me the pin. The native speaker would perhaps get you a bin and give it to you, right? So it is important for us. If you ask for time, perhaps you would receive a dime, because if you don't say time and say time, he would hear it as dime, the voiced counterpart of that particular voiceless plosive. So it is important for us to aspirate per ter cur. Now, vowel length, we have already dealt with this. We need to make use of the right distinction between vowel sounds, especially when it comes to vowel length. You can't swallow a peel, can you? If you talk to a native speaker and say, just a moment, let me swallow my peel and come at 5 o'clock, he would wonder what peel you are swallowing while you are talking about swallowing a pill. He perhaps would also ask you, oh my God, do you want to swallow a banana peel or potato peel, right? So there is a change in the meaning if you do not make use of the right vowel length. Now, these are other sounds, where you need to make use of the right. Look at the vowel length here. Indians do not make use of the long vowel for the word food. We tend to pronounce this word as food. If you say food, a native ear would hear it as foot, because it's the short vowel in foot and a long vowel in food, right? These are the other vowel substitutions that are very, often used in Indian English, in English spoken by Indians. Now, Telugu speakers say gem for jump, just for just, bled for blood. And look at this pair. They make use of ow instead of ah. It's love and loved, but then we tend to make use of ow and say loud. Oh, he loved her a lot. And people would wonder what he did, because they would interpret that loud as L-O-U-D and not L-O-V-E-D, right? So it is important for us to make use of the right vowel sound. You don't say father, loaf. These are in Telugu pronunciations, mocks. Okay, you get to know your marks and not mocks. And this we have already discussed. Neighbor. If you do not make use of the diphthong in the word paper and pronounce it with just the simple pure vowel and say paper or paper, I want the paper, you would perhaps receive pepper and not the paper. You need to make use of the right sound, vowel sound. Look at these words. Busy, easy, and hesitate. They should be said with a z sound, but most South Indians say it with a s sound. Busy, easy, hesitate. Now, vision has a j sound, exams has z, and MCJ has a j sound. And in all the three words, South Indians tend to replace these consonant sounds with other consonant sounds. Like vision is said as je instead of je. There is a z used here in vision. Okay, exams. You ask a native speaker, how did you do your exams? You perhaps would get the answer as, I'm sorry, I don't eat eggs with jam. Okay, he would never understand that you're talking about exams when you pronounce the word as exams, right? Now, MCJ, where you have to say J, is often pronounced by Telugu speakers as Zay, MCZ, with a Z sound. This, of course, is a common. Z, zebra, zinc, zoo are pronounced as jed, zebra, jink, and jew. The sir free variation in North Indian speech, same and shame, sign, shine, sip and ship. There is a whole deal of difference in the meaning if you replace one sound for another. There was this, Orion professor who was very happy to receive an English professor at the airport. And he said, when the English professor said, "Hello, professor, very good morning to you." And Professor, so XYZ, our Indian professor, said, "Shame to you, shame to you." And the English professor must have wondered what he did to receive that kind of a response. So it is very important for us not to mix up sounds one for another, because the entire meaning changes. Pleasure, measure, the j sound here most often is said with a sh sound. Now, in words like investment, with a b sound, this happens mostly in Bengali speech. Retroflexion is something that is used in Indian speech, where we tend to roll the tongue back, light one, which is we have to wean ourselves off this gemination or the double pronunciation of consonant sounds like college, knowledge, or worry. You know how most Indians tend to articulate the r sound double. I understand. Okay, there must be a lot of worry, but then however much the intensity of the worry is, it always has to be worry and not worry, right? Do not geminate the sounds. Lack of the and the in our speech. We do not use the and the where the tongue glides and touches the upper teeth. We do not say thank you, think, those were the days, these are wonderful. We always tend to use the Indian variant, the, thank you, think, those, these. Try and practice these dental fricatives so that your speech sounds crisp. Now, oh yes, the use of the dark l, whether it is used at the final, when the l is used in the final position, the back of the tongue also has to go and touch the velum, like dull. That's the right pronunciation, null, shall. But Indians don't pay much attention to this. They always say dull with an alveolar articulation, which is not correct. We do not make use of the syllabic l, m, n in the sense words like bottle, metal, petal, etc. are pronounced with a vowel sound in the second syllable here, and so we tend to bottle, okay, or a better version of that pronunciation would be with a till, bottle or bottle. Metal, petal, bottom. Okay, the schwa or the vowel sound should not be inserted, and must make use of these syllabic consonants in such pronunciations. Indians, this is a pan-Indian feature where we tend to, break clusters. Circle, school. Now, circle is a cluster which is difficult for our Indian speakers. Certation, station, again the certa. So what Indians do is we break the cluster and add a vowel sound and pronounce these words as school, station. That becomes easier for us to articulate these pronunciations, these words, without having to articulate the clusters, consonant clusters. So we need to practice articulating these consonant clusters in our speech. Slow speech, slow production helps us to articulate these consonant clusters. Misplaced word accent, we have already discussed this. When you say police, many people don't understand it. It's police. Police, the accent is on the second syllable. Now, whether it is resume or resume or resume, you have to make use of the accent in the right, on the right syllable in order to convey the right meaning. Functional accent also, this we have already discussed, whether you use it as a noun or a verb. Indians generally say convict. He has been convicted. The convict was here, he's been convicted. No, the convict is here and he's been convicted. When you use it as a verb, make sure you move the accent to the second syllable. Also make use of derivational accent in your speech. Academy, academic, academician. Improper rhythm. Make use of the right rhythm in your speech. Place the accent on the content words. Take the dog for a walk. Take the dog for a walk. The content words have to be accented and the structure words have to be just left into the oblivion. Pauses have to be used in the right juncture depending on what you wish to convey on your mind, right? If you want to say that she bathed and fed the baby, if she did both the things to the baby, then you say she bathed and fed the baby. But if you want to say that she bathed and then she fed the baby, use a pause after bathe. Look at the last sentence. Vinod, Khanna is coming tonight. If you pause after Vinod, you're talking to Vinod and telling Vinod that Khanna is coming home tonight. But if you do not pause, you are speaking to one Mr. Vinod Khanna, right? Vinod Khanna is coming tonight. You're talking about Vinod Khanna coming tonight. Vinod Khanna is one person. Well, we talked about this as well. When you say you want coffee, what does it convey? I thought you wanted tea. If I said you want coffee, that would convey the meaning that I didn't think you wanted coffee. You want coffee. I thought somebody else wanted coffee. So look at the different meanings that you can convey by just shifting the focus from one word to another word. Yes, we talked about this as well. We need to make use of the right tones in our speech, right? Now, here are some typical examples of mispronunciations. Words like egg, equip. Actually, it is equip. Every. Telugu speakers tend to add the y sound in these words and pronounce these words as yeg, equip, every, environment, right? It's environment is another version of the mispronunciation. That is because they go by the spelling. They look at the spelling and say environment, which is totally incorrect. You pronounce this word as environment, every, equip, egg. Whereas in words where they have to use the y sound, as in yellow and young, they say eng, yellow. What's your favorite color? Yellow is my favorite color. It doesn't sound good. It's yellow, right? And in words like bruise, cruise, and juice, they go by the spelling and pronounce them as bruise, cruise, juice. Okay, the y sound comes up there. A word like husband, bin, okay, is pronounced as husband. Husband. No, it doesn't sound good at all. Well, it's another matter. You can bend the husband, but then pronounce it as husband. Husband. Is and as are pronounced with the s sound. Is and as, especially by the Dravidian speakers. And so on and so forth. I think we are really running out of time. It's almost 12:40 now. I've used most of these words, I suppose. Okay, yeah, where Xerox and serious are words where you make use of the diphthongs there. Words like paper and parents, South Indians tend to pronounce these words as paper, and parents. Totally incorrect. Use the diphthongs a, paper, parents. zoology and MCJ, where you have to say J, use the sound J, and where you have to say Z. Don't mix them up and pronounce these words as zoology and MCZ. Railway and child, I've used that example. Railway and child are most often pronounced as railway and child, which are incorrect pronunciations. Right then, one thing is very first stage that we cannot really democratize the English language. There is no escape from the English language. We need the English language for upper mobility in society, for any kind of, interviews that we face. The first thing is pronunciation. Grammar, of course, is very important. You need to speak grammatically correct sentences, but then if you go into the interview room and say good morning, you have lost the job. Okay, so pronunciation is indeed a very important aspect of your speech. So tell your students this first, motivate them, help them to become enthusiastic learners of the English pronunciation. And the best methods that you can make use of is to, of course, supply comprehensible input. Anxiety, please see that your students do not have anxiety situations while learning. Do not be rude when you are correcting them. Be polite and be nice, be friendly, and yet correct their pronunciations. Then we also need to make use of a lot of, instruction and perceptual training aids in production activities, like give them real life situations, give them pair work to work in charts and tables and games. I have kind of developed certain games and have called it phonetic games, okay? Games in phonetics, F-U-N, fun, and phonetics, which really, make the students involve enthusiastically in the learning process. Give mouth illustrations, phonetic drilling. Tell them how. I'm sure all of you have access to Gimson, and you could also pick up the book that I have written, which is very simple and has a lot of exercises, and it's a kind of a self-learning book where you also have the key to all the exercises, instructions, detailed instructions as to how to articulate the different sounds, all the 44 sounds. So give them these mouth illustrations, bring both the lips together, purr and release. Take the tip of your tongue, place it behind your teeth on the alveolar ridge and release. So this knowledge, although you do not have to give them technical inputs, but then awareness of the organs of speech does help them to articulate effectively. Give them phonetic drilling, ear training, repetitive practice. I'm just quickly showing you the kind of, games that I have developed for, to enthuse the students to learn across. Instead of words, this is to do with sounds. They transcribe these words and quickly fill in these, fill in the crossword, say feet, and then li, pa, la, ka, sh, and so on and so forth. Quickly, we are running out of time, so I want to end this here. Syllable dabble, give them a number of syllables, ask them to put them together to form words, and perhaps also ask them to accentuate these words effectively. Give them a kind of a game like this where they follow the path of words that are accented on either the first syllable or the second syllable or the third. You can make different games like this, Now this particular one is follow the words that are stressed on the second syllable. So you go to the end of it. You start from here and come out from here, accenting on the words that are accented on the second syllable alone. Intention station, give them a lot of practice in intonation. Look at this word. What time does your train leave? You can have the same answer for two different questions here. I mean, the thought in your mind, my train leaves at 9. What time does your train leave? So the focus should be on time. You want to know the time. So A is where you focus on time. What time does your train leave? Now, in the second context, you say, I know what time your car leaves, but what time does your train leave? So you want to know about the time that the train leaves. So focus here should be train. What time does your train leave? So teach them the importance of focus and the nuances of meaning that you can convey by just shifting from one word to another. These are my references. I've been studying phonetics for the last 25 years. And thank you so much for your patient attention. I hope I've been able to, it was a real quick, breezing through different topics. And I think this is something like, serving soup and starters to people to get really hungry, become more hungry, and want to learn more pronunciation, more English pronunciation. So all the best to all of you. And I hope I've stopped at the right time. Yes, it's 12:45 now. We have 15 minutes for the question answer session. Over to Dr. Upender.
Thank you so much for giving valuable insights, ma'am, about pronunciation and how it matters when we speak English language. And it has reminded us of English classes that we had in IFLU. And you have talked about many things related to language in general and the common errors that we make in English language. It has reminded us of, like, we have different varieties of English, like Tamilish, Tenglish, English, Manglish, and other varieties. And I'm sure it will help people to overcome mother tongue influence and improve their pronunciation. Okay, so it is a great talk for teaching as well as for improving pronunciation. Now the session is open for question and answer. If you have any queries, you can drop your questions or queries in the chat box so that ma'am will take some questions. Yeah, if you have any questions, please drop your questions in the chat box. And I have shared the link for feedback. You'll be provided the certificates only when you fill the feedback. Yeah. I think we don't have any questions, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we don't have any questions. Dear participants, if you have any.
What is the difference between th and th is the spelling that they have written? Well, the spelling th corresponds to both these sounds, th as well as the. You raise your tongue, glide it, and make it touch the upper teeth to produce both these fricative sounds. They are known as dental fricatives. Th, the. And now this is a good example to tell you that the letter combination th corresponds to both th as well as the. Th as in thank you, and the as in those, right? So these are the two most difficult consonant sounds in the English language. Difficult in the sense that Indian speakers find it very difficult to produce these, I mean, use the glide and glide the tongue and touch the upper teeth and not really bring them both together so that there is a firm contact between the articulators. Once you do that, you produce the Indian variant the and the. That these are not the English the and the. The as in thank you, the as in those. Okay, can I have the next? How to learn British accent. Oh my God, the only way to learn British accent is to attune your ears to the sound patterns of the British pattern, right? The RP, you can listen to BBC, you can listen to their news channels or any radio programs. The more you listen to, like I mentioned, you know, the first skill that a baby grapples with before the baby articulates the mother tongue is listening. So also when we are in our journey to learn the English language, the first step would be to listen effectively, listen extensively. You have to listen to the right pattern of the language. Now, if you want to learn the British pattern, listen extensively to the British pattern, and I'm sure the more movies that you watch, the news channels that you watch, as you listen, the more inputs you get, the easier it is for you to articulate this pattern.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. There are two more questions. I think we have missed them.
Yeah, can you read them for me, Dr. Rupinder?
Yes, sure, ma'am. One participant asks, is it possible for the adult learners to neutralize their accent?
Okay, of course it is. But the important things that are necessary for an adult learner to neutralize their accent is one, motivation. You have to be motivated, not just wanting to speak neutral pattern of the language, but you need to really work hard. You need to listen extensively and articulate as well. Do a lot of repetition practice. There are a number of books and audio CDs as well that can help you wean yourself away from the mother tongue influences in our speech. It's not really criminal to have such mother tongue influences on our speech. It is natural. We don't need to feel really very bad about it. But then, as I have been saying throughout the session, since we are learning the English language and we are in the field of education, English teachers especially, that what we speak in the classroom becomes sometimes the holy scriptures for our students, especially at the school level. They take their teachers so seriously that they do not want to learn from any other source. And therefore, it becomes, all the more a greater responsibility for us, teachers of English, to use the correct pattern of pronunciation.
Yes,
is there another question? Yes.
There is a question, in real life situation,
yes,
what do we use, either phoneme or allophone?
Okay. Now, what are these phonemes? Phonemes are, we just talked about these 44 sounds, right? These 44 sounds are phonemes. Now, when we use these phonemes in our everyday speech, we do not use these phonemes as discrete phonemes. In connected speech, there is some kind of an influence of one sound over another sound, either the preceding sound or the following sound, and therefore we end up speaking allophones. It's a very good question. What are allophones? Allophones are variations of one sound, right? For example, there is an aspirated per, which is an allophone of the phoneme per, right? So now, or when you take, for example, the l sound in please, which becomes devoiced because of the influence of the preceding voiceless per. So this way, every sound has an influence on either the preceding or the following sound. And in real life situations, we do not speak in discrete phonemes, but there are, allophones while we speak. We can't hear you, Dr. Upender. Upender,
Yes,
you have
yes,
to
ma'am.
unmute.
Yes,
Yes.
there is one more question, ma'am.
Okay.
How can we remember all these aspects in order to teach phonetics? That is,
Oh,
yeah,
oh my
teaching job.
God. Yeah, if you are a motivated teacher, you would learn everything. You would do everything under the sun to take this, all your knowledge. You would acquire the knowledge first, and then you would take it to your classroom. Hard work is the only answer. You need to read a lot, and and you would become, successful teachers of English.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Another question: how can we train the regional medium engineering students to master in phonetics?
Again, like I have talked about the best methods. Okay, you could perhaps go back to the slides and see. You need to give them a lot of practice. Regional medium students especially, they can, you must have noticed that they do write very well. They write effectively. Their writing skills are really good, but they fail when it comes to speaking. So you have to give them extra time. They have to do, like I just mentioned, everything. Like listening is the first thing that you have to get them practice, give them a lot of, ear training exams, help them to listen effectively and extensively, so that, they get enough practice in that, and then give them chances to articulate all the pair work, the group work, the gains that I have kind of talked about, the last 2-3 slides that we discussed. Make use of all of that, and I'm sure they are very smart. Okay, regional medium students are very smart and quick to learning. I'm sure they would find, they would find the inspiration from you, what you give in the classroom, and they would be able to learn what you are giving them.
There is a question from Dr. Sudipti.
Okay.
How do we know which accent or pronunciation to be followed, like British or American, or do we have to follow the neutral accent?
Okay. Well, in India, our education system, we teach our students, like I mentioned in the session, although we teach the RP, okay, which is the British pattern, we do not expect anybody to speak the received pronunciation of Great Britain. We would like you to approximate your speech to that, in the sense, if we reach up to the neutral accent at a level where your listeners cannot identify you as someone from Kerala or someone from Punjab or someone from, Andhra Pradesh or Telangana. So if you reach that stage where your listeners do not identify any kind of regional accent in your speech, that is more than enough. Our idea is to be intelligible in our speech. We need to make ourselves understandable, comprehensible. People should be able to understand and comprehend what we are speaking. That is enough. Now, when it comes to American accent, it depends on the individual's need. These days, many people work in BPOs, right? In places where they need to practice American accent, where they need to practice this rolling of the tongue and say teacher, master, doctor. So if your profession demands, then you need to practice American accent and use it at your workplace.
Yeah, I think we don't have any more questions, ma'am.
Okay, I'm so happy to have so many here on this webinar. There are 2, not 3 participants, and I really hope. Yes. Yes.
There is one more
Another
question.
question.
Again, the similar to British and American, but should we follow Indian accent, general Indian English?
Yes, of course. General Indian English is a standard accepted norm when you talk about pronunciations. Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted to say that after hats off to you once again. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I really hope all of you would at least, instill some inspiration in your students and help them to learn and help them to love to learn, actually love to learn, and also learn to love the English pronunciation. And if that happens, I think this session had been a very successful one to me.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
All right. Okay, then.
Yeah,
So, yes, Supender.
there is a formal vote of thanks, ma'am. I'd like to invite Dr. Kondal to propose a vote of thanks. Sir, can you please?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Upender. I'm Dr. Bonala, Assistant Professor of English. On behalf of Department of English, School of Sciences, SR University, I would like to propose vote of thanks. At the outset, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor J.R.C. Reddy Garu for granting permission to conduct the webinar. A big thank to our beloved Dean, Professor Bimal Kumar Sarkar, School of Sciences, for his constant support and encouragement in conducting this webinar a successful one. I also express my thanks to the registrar, deans of various schools, and heads of departments, and all the faculty members. I must express our deep sense of appreciation for today's speaker, Dr. Rupa Sujna Garu, for her valuable inputs on various elements of pronunciation and commonly made mistakes in pronunciation. Thank you, madam. My special thanks to all the participants who made this webinar a memorable and a remarkable one. Last but not the least, I convey my thanks to IT team for their technical support during the webinar. Thank you, one and all. That's over to Upender.
Ma'am, if you don't mind, there are a couple of questions.
Okay.
If you are okay with them,
Okay.
could you please suggest a book for improving accent? Any one of the book?
Pick up A.C. Gimson. Okay, A.C. Gimson is a very good book. And if you want the some books from Indian authors, there is P.V. Damija, Sethi and Damija, a simple one that can help you.
Yeah, there are a couple of participants who want to ask. I will unmute them so that they can ask the question. Yeah, Sonal Chaurashia, can you please unmute yourself? Monisha ma'am, can you please unmute them?
Yes, sir, I'm just doing it.
Yes. Sonal Chaurashia is there, and I have seen a message from Deepak Kumar. Sonal Chaurashia. Monisha ma'am, let us wind up the session as madam has some other work. So if they have, they can communicate with us so that we can clarify.
Yes, and I'm always available there. You can email me anytime to get any kind of clarifications. Okay. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Dr.
ma'am.
Rupesh. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to the entire team, organizing team. I think you've done a wonderful job.
Thank you.
And thanks to Rupesh.
Thank you, madam.
Rupesh,
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Rupesh, thanks for having me over, Rupesh. I really enjoyed the session.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's a pleasure, and we're very glad to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rupesh. I'm delighted to be here. Okay. Now I'll rush back to do my next job. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yes, ma'am. Bye, bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye, bye, bye.
Participant, please fill the feedback form so that you will be provided with a certificate within 15 minutes from now. Otherwise, the link will be disabled. Please do it within 15 minutes so that we can work on it, and certificates will be given within 15 days from today. And if you have queries,